Hello, Hebrew Nation. Peace, shalom, and blessings wherever you are. I'm so glad to be back again. Okay. Na bakwanyiri mwansi mamugusia serietani ya Yesu. Mbia mura semure. Na wasalamia wote katika jina la Isa Masia. Natumai mko salama popote mlipo katika jina lake. So we're back again with yet another topic. And if you're new on this channel, okay, so I primarily work under the premise that the Bantu tribes are a lost tribe of Israel. Okay, so today we'll discuss the Angel RAGU'EL. Okay, so now we start to discuss the Angel RAGU'EL, and we'll first go over to the book of Enoch 20 and see where RAGU'EL is coming. Alright? So Enoch 20, 1 to 7. These are the names of the angels who watch. Uriel, I discussed Uriel. Raphael, I already did. And RAGU'EL, we discussed today. We already discussed Michael, and we discussed Serakiel. So the only angel that's left now is Gabriel, angel of good news. Okay? He's a very scary angel in terms of what the Most High has delegated over to the Archangel RAGU'EL. Okay? So we start over with RAGU'EL, and we start with the Hebrew breakdown. So we can see, let's try and find the agglutination of the name RAGU'EL and the mystery behind the name RAGU'EL. Okay? So we're going to go down and break it down using the Hebrew, or what they have out there, what they say is mainstream Hebrew. Okay, now there are 5 people in the Bible called RAGU'EL, right, other than the Archangel RAGU'EL, who's mentioned in Enoch 20. So 5 people called RAGU'EL or RAGU'EL. Now they have a phonetic variation of RAGU'EL. Now surprisingly, I don't necessarily agree with the meaning of RAGU'EL, meaning a friend of God, but I'll let you know why. Okay, so then we have, so Esau's son, okay, was called RAGU'EL. Then you have the Midianite priest, father of Zipporah, and then you have the father of Elisaph, leader of the tribe of Dan, and then you have the ancestor of a man named Meshulam during the Babylon exile. Okay, and Abarim does a fabulous job of just, being able to point them out. Okay, now to be able, and this is what I want to say, to be able to understand the function of the name or the mystery behind the name RAGU'EL, you have to understand the meaning and the breakdown of it. Okay, now bearing in mind, as far as I'm concerned, the Hebrew language is an African language, and Hebrews name their children just like Africans. For example, in Africa, if you got attacked by a wild animal, the child could be called, say it was a wolf, the child would be called wolf. Okay, in the Bible you find that the antediluvian fathers were given names based on the happenings of the event. All right, and the angels, as well as many of the biblical characters. So to be able to find the mystery behind that name, you have to know the root of the name, okay, and the agglutination of it. So because Bantu languages, ancient Hebrew, as well as ancient Egyptian, all work with agglutination. Bantu languages, okay, all right. So now let's go over to Enoch 20 verse 4. RAGU'EL is one of the holy angels who inflicts punishment on the world and the luminaries. Okay, now the world, of course, is us human beings. Luminaries would have to do with the fallen angels. So he deals with luminaries who decide to take the wrong path. So he's one of the angels that's highly influential, together with Angel Michael, the angel of war. that inflict punishment. They're basically angels of death. Now these angels don't do sugar, baby, honey. The angels that do that maybe Sarakiel or Raphael, because it's a healing angel, healing. Alright? Okay, so then the only other place other than Enoch 20, you'll find the angel Raguel mentioned. You'll find him mentioned in Enoch 23. So what you'll find Enoch 23 verse 1 to 5. Okay, from where I went to another place towards the west into the extremities of the earth. Verse 2, where I beheld a fire blazing and running along without cessation, meaning it's not stopping, okay, just an ever burning fire, which intermitted its course neither by night or by day, but continued always the same. Okay, and then verse 23 it says, 23 verse 3 it says, I inquired, saying, what is this which never ceases? Then Raguel, one of the holy angels who were with me, answered, okay, verse 5, and say, the blazing fire which you behold towards the west, or running towards the west, is that of all the luminaries of heaven. Okay, so that fire is specifically for torturing, okay, the luminaries of heaven that fell down. Alright, the fallen angel. So Raguel deals with fire. Okay, he deals with fire, he deals with disease, he deals with death, because his job is punishment. Okay, now if we go down to Hebrew, as far as I'm concerned, the name Raguel is made up of an agglutination of, it's made up of a combination of three words, Ra, Gu, and El. However, if you go into the text and go into if you go into text, you can look that up in religious texts and stuff. They all seem to say that Raguel means friend of God. Now I have a problem with that, because if your job is to inflict punishment, I feel it would be rather sadistic to call an angel who inflicts punishment, a friend of God. But we're all friends of God, okay? So I can't quite deny either. We're all friends of God, right? So, but so the basic deduction of what they have in terms of breaking down the name Raguel, they only use the prefix. Okay, so from the word Ra and El, okay, which we're going to do, which is what the mainstream Hebrew teaches. But I do have another agglutination or another derivation where I go back to African languages and get the meaning, then I'll give it back to you in Hebrew. Okay, so let's do what they have as mainstream Hebrew now. Okay, I'll tell you what it is. All right. So the word Ra'ah, they say, and Abarim is very good. Like I said, please use Abarim. It just breaks it down so well. And Bible Hub, okay, it may describe harmful acts as well as harmful words and even rotten fruits. Okay, so the first part, Ra'ah, okay. Now, if you're an angel who's supposed to inflict punishment, there's so many ways you can do, so many weapons. Wiser weapons, the spiritual tools, okay, that are also weapons. So if you do Ra'el, it's or basically what the thing is the derivation for Raguel, it's basically one who inflicts, through harmful words. Okay, because if God speaks out a punishment, all he needs to say is the word and it's done. Okay, so I would say then in this respect, then Raguel is that manifestation of God's punishment in terms of his word. Okay, if he says go forth and kill this army that's bothering my people, okay, so he's that which is God's word, but in terms of punishment, harmful words. Okay, Then you have the second derivation, Ra'a, which is used about 8 times, they say, in the meaning of literal breaking into something, okay? Or figuratively, in the sense of brokenness by God due to sin. Now, is Raguel's job to inflict punishment so he can possibly return people to God? Yeah. Is his job to inflict punishment on the enemy? Yeah. So does he at one point have to break them down in terms of death or disease? Just make them weak in that respect. So it's not a good thing. Okay. So again, so the first part seems to give the meaning of Raguel, the prefix Ra. Okay. Now, then you have the masculine. Then you have another one using again the prefix Ra Rea. Okay. So you have Rea. Okay. REA, meaning an aim or a purpose. Okay. Then you have the verb Ra'a. It's probably a loan word from Aramaic. It is equivalent to Hebrew, okay? And may be related to the word rasas, which means to crush or break in pieces. Now, so Ra'a has to do now with the breaking down, that becomes rasas, okay? To break to pieces. Now, in Ekegusii, rasa. In Ekegusii, whenever you refer to the word rasa, it's exactly the same as Hebrew. Rasa would be if somebody got shot or somebody got, like you strike somebody. It usually has an implication of wiping out someone, basically finishing them or killing them. Okay? So to smite, to kill, rasa, or to strike in Ekegusii, just the same as Hebrew. Okay? Now, in Swahili, risasi is a bullet. You use a risasi to strike somebody to death. So in Swahili and Ekegusii, you have the same derivation, okay? So now, if you join those words, Ra'el, it will be, one who. So Raguel then, okay, implying, so basically it's Ra'el. But because the derivation doesn't cover the G part, and that happens sometimes with languages with phonetic variations, so Raguel then would mean he who inflicts punishment through aiming of harmful words. Remember, Re'a is to aim. Remember that. Re'a is to aim. So he who inflicts punishment through aiming of harmful words or aiming to smite. Rasa, as of a bullet. So it looks like, now using the little metaphysics, I know spiritual metaphysics, when the angel Raguel is instructed or is released, he makes noise as of a bullet. His job is to target a certain population that's sinning. So he has to have aim and he has to have purpose. Okay, so with all this being said, Raguel is not necessarily your flowery angel or your healing angel. His job is to smite or weaken or to punish. Alright, so just with the first prefix only, I feel for me the meaning works. But if you go and Google, even just a basic Google search, it'll tell you friend of God. I don't think so. Okay, but that's just my opinion. Alright, so okay, now remember in 2 Kings 4:7, when the Syrian army had come to attack Israel, okay, and they camped all night to the point where there was an inflation inside Israel because they had encamped around the wall, so no one could leave, come in or go. Okay, so they were basically being starved to death by the Syrian army. Well then, guess what happens? At night, the Syrian army, as they're camping, they start to hear war cries like horses and chariots coming for them. And the Syrian army wakes up and flees the scene, okay? Flees that scene like nobody's business. Well, then when the lepers wake up in the morning, okay, they find out the Syrian army fled and left all their supplies and they ran for their lives, okay? Now, that's Raguel's job. Raguel didn't even have to come and fight or kill anybody. His job is to make war cries. So, okay, so we have another derivation using the first prefix, which then becomes Rua, okay? R-U-A, okay? It means to produce a sudden burst of a sound, and it goes, a conjugation would be rare, okay? R-E-A. And then Terua will describe a collective rallying cry or a war cry. Now, in Ekegusii, Tera is to sing, okay? Now, during war, there are war cries that are sung in terms of chants, okay? So, when Raguel is released in the spirit, there are rallying war cries, war noises, okay? And then, so in that sense then, as a variation of RAGUEL, it would be he who comes from God with sudden war cries. And I say come because, you know, like the Holy Spirit is called Ruach, okay, in Hebrew, to imply a wind that comes from a certain direction. In Ekegusii, Ruach means, it's like when you ask somebody, now, where are you coming from, Ruach? Okay, so RAGUEL is he who, okay, emits sudden war cries. Roar is also a sudden burst of a sound, okay? And when warriors go to war, they always make war cries. And some of them are actually quite, they work with certain resonances that actually create fear in people. Because that's the physics of it, or metaphysics of it, okay? Okay, so RAGUEL actually, okay, so RAGUEL's job is indeed to make war cries. And in fact, if you study RAGUEL, you'll find out that he's actually a trickster angel. He actually has a sense of humor to him, but we'll come to that later, okay? So now, we go over, to the next derivation, which is another derivation again of the prefix Ra'a, okay? The verb Ra'a primarily means to see, look at, or notice something, okay? And then you'll find the verb Ra'a, another one, means pasture or to feed. That's another derivation of Ra'a. And the participle means a shepherd. So do you see? To watch, to see, to look, and then pasture, and then a shepherd. Do you see the correlation? And then you see the masculine roe means a seer, okay? Now, if you combine, you know, using this, roe, ra, what you get is shepherd of the Most High. However, shepherd is still a good way to put it, but using, you know, the prefix ra'a, remember it's a shepherd, a watchman, to see, to look, to watch out for flock, okay? So there's the idea of looking, because a shepherd will not only take care of his flock, okay? A shepherd will also make sure they feed, and then his job is also to watch out for wild animals, and he also watches to see if there's any flock going astray. So the idea of looking and taking care of is being a watcher, okay? So shepherds are watchmen, okay? So Jesus is our shepherd, okay? So he's our watchman. So RAGUEL is watcher of God as well, just using another prefix again with the concept of seeing and a shepherd, right? Okay. Now, herein lies the problem. Now, with all these derivations that I've given you, I understand that sometimes names can have phonetic variations, okay? Like Raguel, can become Reuel. It happens, okay? Mikael can become Mikael. I know sometimes you can gain or lose a letter, it happens. But for some reason, it didn't sit well with me, because when I went and looked, I found that all of them were only doing the prefix. The accounting for the G wasn't accounted for, okay? And I tried to convince myself it's a phonetic variation. But the mere fact that it seems to be leaning towards friend of God, and this is an angel who inflicts punishment, it makes sense. Because God is not a sadist, He's not going to call an angel who inflicts punishment his friend. I mean, we're all friends of God, right? We're all friends of God. So let's get that part out of the way. All right. Now, what I did was I had to tap in to my African meaning, and that's how I do sometimes. That's how I use my African interpretation as a guidepost, okay? Now, with the name Raguel, let's take the first, should I say the prefix, Ragu? Let's put it together. Ragu, and then El is God, okay? So, a phonetic variation, just remember, whenever you have a G, the next common phonetic variation is a J. So, when you have, like, say, so when you have the phonetic, so when you have the name Ragu, it can become a phonetic variation of the name Raju, okay? Now, Raju in Hindu, okay, Hindu Sanskrit, Raju is an emperor or a prince. Now, let's go back to the word. Is the angel Raguel a prince angel? Yes. One of the 6 to 7 prince angels, all right? In fact, he leads a battalion under him, all right? That's why he's a prince angel. Now, when you do Raju, another phonetic variation could be Roja, not paying attention to the vowels, okay? Roja. Roja in Swahili means something terrifying or a marvel, something terrifying. Now, is Raguel terrifying? Yes. He brings punishment. He doesn't bring gifts. His name is not Santa Claus. Okay? Alright. Then you have another phonetic variation of Ragu. It can be Roga. Now, Roga in Swahili and Ekegusii is either it's to put a curse on somebody or use black magic. So it has the connotation of using black magic to put a curse on someone. Okay? But just knowing how language works, you use that as a guidepost, because language is dynamic. Sometimes meaning and connotations change. So I just put it there as to imply that Raguel is an unleasher of God's curse. Okay? Right. Now, because all curses are punishments, okay? Because Raguel, his job is to emit punishment. So all curses are punishment, but not all punishments are curses, okay? Now, then we go over to Ekegusii, the word Raga. Raga in Ekegusii is to point out or predict something, and then it happens. So having picked out or pointed out an incident, all right? Now remember, in Hebrew, when we just studied this, the word, the first prefix, Ria, R-E-A, means to have an aim or a purpose. Because Raguel's job is just not to inflict punishment on everybody sadistically. He has an aim, he has a target of a particular population. Kind of like what happened in Sodom and Gomorrah. He had a target that was just Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Assuming that him and Michael may have been behind it, right? Because his job is to bring punishment. Now, in Swahili, when you have Raguel, replace that with an L, it becomes Lagu, okay? In Kiswahili, you get the word lenga, which means you add a consonant, lenga. Lenga means to aim or a purpose. So lenga el, okay? So, while in Ekegusii to point is Raga, Ragael, Ragu'el. In Swahili it will be lenga, and in Hebrew it's rea. You see how that goes? Now, in Ekegusii, ragerera, okay, ragerera is to curse somebody, say as a parent or somebody of high authority would, okay? For example, in the Bible you find the book of Genesis, for example, in the Bible, we find the book of Genesis, I think Noah cursed his son. I believe he did curse his son. Ham. Or Canaan. Nope. Noah cursed his grandson, Canaan. Yes. Alright. Now, and of course, bearing in mind the word ragu, an immediate, like an immediate phonetic variation could be rasu. Okay, so ragu'el in Ekegusii to be rasu'el, meaning rasu means to be smoked or to be killed. Okay, he who kills on behalf of God. So now, having internalized all these meanings in my head that I know are African, I knew that the meaning of RAGU'EL would have to center around these meanings, okay? So I remembered the word gera, okay? Gera means to cause someone to do something, but a derivation, or should I say, a word derived out of the word gera would be gur, okay? Means to dread. It's used in the sense of being very afraid, okay? Or to stand in awe. So if you combine the idea of Ra, a watcher, a seer, a watcher, a shepherd, a seer, okay, one who smites, one who aims, which is Ra, prefix, and then you combine with the suffix gur, Ra, and then gur, el, you know what that becomes? He who is the terrifying watcher of God, he who is the feared watcher of God, who ends, who strikes, who emits punishment. So when you join the Ra and the Gur, but I got the word Gur using African languages so I could center, so I could actually circumvent around the meaning, okay? So Ragur means basically he who drags in the curse of God, or he who is the dreaded terror or watcher of God. Okay, so he's not one of those angels you want to ever encounter on the wrong side. Okay. And even the word, another derivation could be Ra, of course, with the meaning that I gave you, and Garar means to drag away, like pull away, okay? So he's basically the watcher who pulls away, like drags in sin, not sin, drags in punishment or God's curse, okay? This is a scary angel, okay? You just don't want to be caught on the wrong side, alright? Okay, so here's another derivation that I worked on, okay? Now, in Hebrew, the gold unit I would say, for Hebrew, in Israel and in Babylon, the gold unit of measurement was a mena, okay? Was a mena, alright? Now, so you were supposed to give half a mena for the sins that you would commit, because a human being cannot be fully holy. So you're supposed to give half a shekel, okay? And then you're also supposed to give another half a shekel to prevent a plague, okay? Because it does say in the book of Exodus that you shall be judged, I think, by the shekel of your holiness, okay? Now, the smallest unit of a shekel, okay, is a gera, okay? Gera. And in Ekegusii, when you say which means, can you please measure this weigh this flour for me? So the word gera in Ekegusii means to weigh, just like Hebrew, okay? So no one can ever convince me that Bantus are now Hebrews, and Hebrew is not an African language. I mean, those are pirates. But here we go. So when you have a gera, okay, so 50 to 60 shekels made a manna, okay. Now remember God, I'm sorry, wait, 50 to 60 shekels made a manna, okay, made a manna or a manna. Now, which means then 300 gera made a manna, okay. 300 gera is equals to a manna, okay. So it's a unit of measurement. Now, how is this relevant? When God spoke to King Belshazzar, who was Nebuchadnezzar's son, with the writing on the wall, guess what measurement he used to show that the Lord had already searched him and judged him? He used a unit of measure, which was what? A mena. He said, mena, tekel, fiercest, meaning that the shekel of His Holiness was lacking, okay? And the smaller part of a shekel, of course, the breakdown of a shekel, the smallest unit is a gera. Now, kind of like with the name Mikael, in Hebrew, Kemo means one as if or like. If you pig Latinize, it becomes Moke and then El, so Mikael. It's the same thing with this. A gera, if you take the gera and turn it, it becomes RAGU'EL, RAGU'EL, meaning judgment or punishment of God. So whenever you see weights or scales, it's always a precursor to what God's going to do in terms of seeing of that population. Okay? Now, okay, this is the fun part. Now we go to the Bantu languages, okay? We're going to Swahili, Bantu, Hebrew. Alright. Now, remember I told you the word Ra in Hebrew means to see, to watch, to look, okay? Now, in Swahili, Ria, okay? Ria means to watch, to see, or to look. So, if you use that, RAGU'EL is actually a variation of the name RAGU'EL, okay? So, to me, I feel I would take more of the meaning that says watcher of God as opposed to friend of God. Just because the story behind him is not a friendly story. When God is releasing His punishment, He's not saying, I am your friend, okay? He's saying, I am angry, I'm disappointed. So, in this sense, RAGU'EL is RAGU'EL in Ekegusii, or RAGU'EL, okay? Because Ali would replace El, because it's derived from the first alphabet that has to do with an attribute of God, Ali. All right. Now, remember how I talked about the word Roja. Roja is something terrifying or fearful or a marvel, okay? So if you say RAGU'EL, RAGU'EL is not, like I said, no flower angel, okay? He doesn't bring flowers and nice smells like Raphael, okay? So he's something terrifying. He's actually a marvel. And I don't think God's enemies would really like this angel, okay? So then another derivation in Swahili. Now in Swahili, rega means to loosen, okay? What does RAGU'EL do? He unleashes God's punishment. So he regas, he unleashes God's punishment. It's pretty easy, okay? Then rejea means to return, to cancel, or to revoke, all right, or to pay back. Now, again, he's the one who returns back God's punishment, basically to the people. So his name can also be Rejea Ali, you know, or he's the one who makes people return back to God, okay? Or he cancels and revokes a certain behavior within a population, all right? Now, the word liga, okay, as a variation of riga. Liga means medicine or poison that makes one weak. Now, there's so many tactics that RAGUEL can use to wipe out a population. And that could also include poisoning waters, like what happened in Egypt, poisoning waters and plagues. Okay, so he will bring plagues to weaken God's enemies. Okay, and of course the word lenga from the word ria means to aim, lenga el, which means, like I said, when he's released, there's the sound of the bullets. He aims and targets a certain population, like he did Sodom, like he did also the Syrian army. His work is to target. Only the Syrian army had those noises. The Israelites didn't hear it. You know, the Israelites did not hear it. You know. So basically, his name would. Okay, so in essence, then RAGUEL's name. Okay, so in essence, then RAGUEL's name, if you combine Ria, okay, or Lenga, one who aims, Lenga, and you become plus L, okay, becomes Lenga El, he who aims, okay. So basically, using all these derivations that I gave you, his name then would mean terrifying marvel of God, okay, terrifying aimer of God, or punisher or unleasher, okay, of enemy. All right. Now, okay, here's my disclaimer. Please listen carefully to what I have to say, otherwise you might misunderstand me, okay? Now, with the name RAGUEL, okay, a phonetic variation in Swahili is renga. Renga. It will be renga ali or renga el, okay? Renga means to make a fool of someone or to deceive someone, okay? Now, why did I pick on this definition, okay? Now, if you combine renga and el, it becomes deceptive one or foolish one of God. Okay? Deceptive one or foolish one of God. But what this actually means is that this angel is loaded, okay? Like I was saying, he's a trickster. He's loaded with war tactics. Okay, so he's a master, okay, he's a mastermind in deceiving people and confusing people during war. Okay, now there are a couple of instances where God has allowed deception. Okay, he's actually ordained deception. Now if you look in the book of 1 Kings 22 verse 23, when the Israel army was going to war, and that involved Ahab and King Jehoshaphat, okay? There was a spirit that volunteered because of the incoming war between the two places, okay? Ahab's wife, his demonic wife, had killed over 400 prophets of God, okay? Now, as a war tactic, I believe it's RAGUEL. It doesn't say, but I believe it's RAGUEL that was unleashed, okay, that day, so that you had 400 prophets say one message that was all false, and the others all say a message that was right, okay? So there was confusion in that camp, but King Jehoshaphat was able to pick it out and say, give me a prophet of God, because all of them were saying the same thing, okay? Because God had sent forth a spirit to deceive them. Now, whenever God ordains deception, it's because he's going to trick somebody to their destruction. Ahab deserved to die. His wife killed innocent prophets, okay? But he ordained it that day so that he could set Ahab up, for his death. All right, and another time where that has happened also, if you look in the book of Ezekiel, God says that if you have idols in your heart and you're a worshiper of idols, and then you go over to a prophet of God to ask for a word from him, God himself will answer you and tell you the truth. Okay? But if God doesn't answer and you go to somebody who's already a false prophet, God says he will deceive him and allow him to be deceived. Okay? So God doesn't say, oh, I'm gonna let them be deceived, you know, because it's fun to play with humans. No. What he's saying is that if somebody is already giving false prophecies, it means they're already working from their flesh. It means they already had been deceived. So God will allow it so that the prophet will get a punishment equal to the person who came to seek from him. Okay? So if you know you're a false prophet, don't talk, because God will allow you to be deceived so you can suffer that same punishment. Alright? Now, another deception that was used is not really recorded in the Bible, but it is. Now, with the black races and Hebrew, should I say Negro races, a big curse that we underwent is colonialism and oppression and slavery. Slavery and oppression and colonialism happened in Africa, and slavery happened in America and the US and the Western nations. But it was the Negroid nations that were victims. Part of that oppression or part of that curse or punishment was for us to forget our identity. Okay, which means God had ordained not only the white man to bring in that perdition, but he had also ordained, okay, their spiritual beings that will help facilitate this loss of identity. And now we started to get it back. It means that maybe Angel RAGUEL has receded. Okay, he's receding back, alright? And also his name means to rejea. So maybe he's also going to be part of those angels that will help push the children of the Israel nations together. Okay, the Hebrew nations. So, in this respect then, his name would be RAGUEL, okay? Foolish one of God, trickster of God, or deceptive one of God, okay? Now, foolish, let me tell you. Okay, the Bible says that man's intelligence, okay, is like God's foolishness. Which means, as his RAGUEL may imply foolish, but actually means smart one, in terms of the realm he deals with. Okay, so I might say foolish, but actually the interpretation is it's smart one of God. Kind of like the name Michael. It means he who is nothing compared to God. But we know Michael is the leading archangel that even Lucifer can't really challenge. Okay, so so you have that. So which means, you know, if you say, like for example, I'm a foolish one of God in language, I have God's foolishness. So that's not a bad thing, okay? So RAGUEL is actually smart one of God. Alright, so let's move next. Okay, so we move over to the Ekegusii Hebrew language. Alright, and this is our last language. Here we go. Okay, now let me show you something here. Remember how we discussed the idea of Ruah, and Ruah meaning to come from or to make a sudden burst or sound, and in Ekegusii it means a direction or flow something or someone is coming from. So the word Ra, so we discussed Ruah. Ruah, I've already told you in Ekegusii and in Hebrew. So Ra as a foreign concept contains, okay, so it says Ra as a fallen concept contains badness of quality or sadness, okay, distress or calamity and injury, may describe harmful acts as well as harmful words and even rotten fruits, okay, rotten fruit. Now Ra'ah is also used about 8 times in the meaning of a literal breaking down of something, okay, And the word Ra'a primarily means to see, to look, or to notice. Okay, so see how they say that Ra'a is also a fallen concept? Because the word was, the world, when God said it's retab, meaning it's ready, okay, it's ready for consumption, he told, humans, okay, go ahead, go forth, it's ready for consumption. But remember, there was the tree of knowledge and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which was Hitab Ra. Okay, so the world did exist with pure good, but evil was locked in a tree until somebody went and unlocked it, Adam and company. Okay, now in Ekegusii, we use it as a fallen or non-fallen concept, but it is a fallen concept because you can't see Ra, you can't see in this world without the idea or realization of being a fallen human. You know what I'm saying? So in Ekegusii, when you say Ro Ra, Ra is used to look, okay, to see. Now, when you want to describe sickness, watch this, this is interesting. Sickness in Ekegusii, you say Ruara, okay, Ruara. I told you, direction, something or something or someone is coming from. And in Hebrew, it's a sudden burst of sound. Remember? Ra. And then Ra is a fallen concept, which means bad things, spoiled or rotten. And it's a fallen concept that alludes to bad quality. So when you're sick, you're saying that I have something that comes from Ra, okay? Ra. So I'm sick. So as a variation, the name would be RAGU'EL, okay? RAGU'EL, okay? RAGU'EL, meaning he who unleashes, as a form of punishment, he can unleash illness, okay? Okay? He who unleashes illness as a form of punishment from ill. So you can say RAGU'EL as a variation of RAGU'EL. So he who comes forth with sickness from God. Okay? Or curse or sickness of the Most High. Alright? Now, remember how we said Ra'a is a loan word and the derivation of the word Rasa, meaning to strike. And I told you, Rasas in Hebrew, meaning to strike. In Ekegusii, Rasas is the same, to smite, to strike or kill. Okay? In Swahili, Risasi is a bullet or Rasisi is a bullet. Okay? So basically, just using the prefix RAGU'EL means attack. Okay? Attack of El, or bullet of El, or curse of El. Okay? Or one who smites on behalf of El, the Most High. So like I said, RAGU'EL is no joke. You don't want to play with him, okay? Now, let's go to the easiest, another Ekegusii derivation. Now, you see how you have RAGU'EL? Okay, add an E at the end, you get RAGU'ELA. You see that? In Ekegusii, Ragerera means to curse someone out of bitterness as a parent or as somebody with authority, kind of like what Noah did to his grandson, Canaan. He cursed Canaan instead of his son, but it was out of bitterness because his son was laughing at him. Okay. Now, which means he is one. So basically, RAGU'EL is one who emits God's curse. Okay, because all curses are punishments. Okay, or you can just say he's a curse of God. All right. Now, remember how I told you about Gera being a weight unit, not only in Israel but also with the Ekegusii. Okay, so Gera as a weight unit, and when you turn it around, it becomes RAGU'EL, meaning judgment of God. So in Hebrew and Ekegusii, same thing. Okay, and then you have Gera. Okay, Gera means, if you say Nerogera, it means to cause someone to do something. Okay, to cause someone to do something. So as you're turning it around, pig Latinize. So as you pig Latinize that meaning, okay, it would not only mean judgment of God, but he who God causes to bring forth his judgment. So it means to cause someone to do something. You pig Latinize, it becomes RAGU'EL. Okay, RAGU'EL. Okay. Now, after having done that, you get RAGU'EL. In Ekegusii, ke rage. Okay, the word is rage. RAGU'EL. RAGU'EL means a marvel. Okay, or something that you can't understand. Okay, a marvel, something difficult, something you can't understand. Okay, so RAGU'EL, RAGU'EL. In Ekegusii, Eri is God. Okay, and raga is to point someone or predict. Say, she's the same one who I ragad would go there. So it's to predict. Now remember that RAGU'EL is a target angel. He aims and targets certain populations. So he has to raga, he has to point. Remember the Hebrew word is rea. We already discussed that. And Swahili is lenga. So RAGU'EL, RAGU'EL, RAGU'EL. Okay? So he's basically an assassin of God. Now we're going to the last meaning. The last one is so easy, okay? Of course we know it is God. In Ekegusii, the word rigi, rigi. Rigi means to look, to search, or to watch out. Okay? So simple. So you put rigi plus eri, you get rigi eli, RAGU'EL, watcher of God. It's so simple. Watcher or seer of God. Right? Now, if you say rigeri is to look at something. So as a variation, you can have rigeri, RAGU'EL. You see that? Rigeria is still a variation, okay? So RAGU'EL is just a watcher or a seeker of God. Right? So it's pretty simple. And this is why it's important to always utilize the African languages. But now you understand how the weight of colonialism worked to help us forget our identity. This is how assimilation works. You take a Bantu book and translate it to English and French and then repackage it and bring it to your people. Okay? But the book is actually a Bantu book. But this, so it might be even that RAGU'EL was behind, behind us being, losing our identity, of course, losing our identity, but also losing the art of writing, okay? Losing the art of reading, that is African. But now you start to decolonize the Bible, to, renew your minds, like Lauryn Hill says, renew your mind, okay? Be not conformed to the world, but be not conformed to the world, but by the renewing of your mind. So next week, we discuss one of my favorite angels, Gabriel. Angel that delivers good messages. Hey! Okay, so please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and please comment, okay? I can't wait to see you next time. Bye! Nyasao yo biamono sana. Nyasaba sesini.